Greetings, 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 sisters and brothers, sisters and brothers. This is the Melanin Report 360, the Melanin Report 360, the Melanin Report 360. Follow, share, like, subscribe, follow, share, like, subscribe. Coming at you a little bit later in the evening, we had a lot of drama unfolding, as you may know, in DC. And I want to just take a moment to pause and what's really going on. So it's a real revealing day in America, KKK, America. It is earth shattering and it is so revealing. Let me go ahead and read my fair use disclaimer so I can cross my I's, dot my T's. Dot my I's, cross my T's. So, fair use, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that may otherwise be infringing. Okay, so let's get into it. So today they were in chambers and they were reading stuff and they were certifying the election, which was going to happen today, 2 weeks before the new administration comes into existence. And they were reading off the Electoral College. And there was a disruption. It seems like it was simultaneous. So I think it was definitely meant to have a certain effect. So these domestic terrorists went to the Capitol. Excuse me. And so all hell broke loose. Whether people are for or against the current administration, the new administration coming in, this is the process. Love it, like it, or whatever. This is what we know they're going to need to do to certify by the Electoral College votes, blah, blah, blah. This is a customary thing that over the last few decades, couple of centuries, they have gone through this exercise, pomp and circumstance, what have you. But again, if you're for the new administration, the current administration, this is our process. Okay. So when I saw what I was kind of like, is this really going on? I was just looking like, really? I was really not surprised. I don't want to sound like I was surprised because I wasn't. But the domestic terrorists, only one person used that phrase in his comments, and that was Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer from New York, my home state. That was the only person I heard use that definition to describe the folks that were doing what they were doing, protesting, They got into the chambers, blah blah blah. I guess it was there was a breach and for security because they used the flagpole or something to smash windows. And I was like, really? Really? This is what folks who I'm sure outside of DC or perhaps inside of DC or Virginia, surrounding states, this is what they were able to do. The boldness of it. This is white privilege 101 because they knew at best there would just maybe be pepper spray, perhaps. But they're white men and women. They are protected in this country. They burn flags, they whatever. They can wreak havoc on our communities and have been. But this is where we are. I believe there was a lady, she was from the House of Representatives, maybe Missouri. I don't want to misspeak, but she was on tonight, one of the networks, and she referenced if this was a Black Lives Matter protest, it would not have been, excuse me, so reserved. Because I think another sip of water. They would have been more brazen if it was Black and brown people. Let's just call it what it is. I was amazed. No, I wasn't amazed because I knew who they were dealing with. They called out the National Guard. They had Virginia police. They had DC police. I think there was another organization, it was like 3 or 4 police operation, or I think it was definitely the National Guard. So we live in 2 different Americas. We live in, as Black and brown people, we have one reality. Put the line down the middle of the page, and white folks have another reality. This is 101 in your face, live in television, on television. This was so in our face to see the discrepancy, the difference of Black and brown people being treated peacefully protesting, especially this summer with Black Lives Matter, all these killings, too many to remember. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the list goes on. Color matters. Race matters. Melanated people are treated in such a horrific manner because if we were in that area doing the same exact thing, how many lives would have been lost? Would have been shot, pepper spray, rubber bullets. They didn't even do any of that as far as I was able to see. They didn't do, I don't even think, tear gas. They called all these, organizations, to deal with this situation, which was horrific. And they were hands off, People were taking selfies with the police. This is why we are in the streets. This is why we are protesting. This is why we are looking behind our back when we're so paranoid, and rightfully so, with interaction with police, because they see melanin first. So that puts a thought in their mind of your humanity, our humanity. It was so clear, crystal clear, as to the difference in our community. If those were black and brown, melanated people, what protests in any way, protests of George Floyd, peaceful protests, they would have tear gassed them at minimum. And then when the curfew kicked in, they would have started tear gas and rubber bullets trying to disperse. They just try to disperse the crowd. Okay, go home. Go home. It's playtime is over. It was so gingerly they were being treated. We were like, huh? So if that was the biggest takeaway today when I was watching um, the news. That was the biggest takeaway. We operate in two different societies. Period. Black and brown people, we operate in one reality. White people have a different reality. Do you think we would have charged the Capitol, broken glass, and gotten into, you know, these offices, putting our feet up on the desk, write a note to Nancy Pelosi, and I don't know who else? Do you think that would happen? And they would have at least had the rubber bullets, at least. But we don't have that privilege. They would have used lethal force. Let's keep it real. Let's totally keep it real. Because if our people, upset, Breonna Taylor incident, her demise, George Floyd, it's just so many. So if we pick, say, the top 5 incidences of this year, and we're protesting, they would have tear gassed us. At minimum. Maximum would have been bullets/rubber bullets, at least. Minimum, maximum. They would not have said, well, it's time to go home, taking selfies with people. They would not have happened. This country is so biased. This is why all of these wrongs will be made right, because it is in our faces. It's so blatant. They cannot cover it up any longer, because what happened today? It's I don't even want to say I'm shocked, because right now in this country, very seldom am I shocked. And I think we have to do something very, very drastic for perhaps this to subside. We have to make the new administration, in the first 100 days, they have to do police reform, bias testing. Find out if you're going to see, quote unquote, a melanated person different. You're going to treat a melanated person different than you would treat a Caucasian person. there are tests that they can identify those markers, and it will be very, very clear as to what they would do, meaning the officer, the detective. We have to have people, you know, try to have some level of accountability. They went to the Capitol because they knew they're going to be seen not as a threat. Why is it when they see a black body, a brown body, a melanated body, they feel threatened? We can be the most peaceful people on the planet due to our if we have a weapon and who was the guy who worked at the cafeteria? I don't know. Can't remember. It's been so many. He told them when his girlfriend or his woman and the child was in the back seat. They shot that man in the right in his daughter was in the back seat. Right, I see his face. He had the locks. I can see his face clearly. I can't call his name right now. But these are pig police, and when they up against the wall, when they see other Caucasian people, they they probably had they probably had several weapons there. Some of them were carrying. I know that to be true. And the fact that this went unbothered, I read a report that 16 people were arrested. That's nothing. 16 people. There was probably 2 or 3 thousand people there. 2 or 3 thousand. It might be more, but what I'm saying is this is an insult to our intelligence because this was crystal clear of the bias in this country, the white privilege in this country, the "you're not going to do nothing to me" attitude. If you're Caucasian, you're not going to get to do anything to me. I will sit at the desk of Nancy Pelosi and you're not going to do anything to me. This is where we are. This is January 6th, I believe it's 6th, 2021. This is real time. They knew they were protected. They would not have any harm come to them, with the exception of the lady. I don't know the circumstances that she was killed. But this is where we are. This is where we are. Chuck Schumer used the language of domestic terrorists, which they were. They are. This isn't going anywhere away anytime soon. So, my advice: be protected, protect yourself. You know, this is where we are. So we can just say it won't happen here. It won't happen. Think about it. It happened today. White privilege is real. These Beckys are real. These Karens are real. And it's I don't even want to say our ancestors, they're like, they're shaking their spiritual head. They're like, yep, this is where we are. Because we are living amongst the great grandchildren of the enslaved. These are the great grandchildren of folks who enslaved us. These are the great-grandchildren. So are we going to continue to expect what we've been getting? This is the definition of insanity. Looking at the same situation over and over again and expecting different results. So we have to be diligent. We have to be mindful of everything around us. If you have the opportunity to take karate or some of these other martial artists, become a martial artist, protect yourself and your family. This is where we are. This is where we are. So I just want you to be mindful of your surroundings. Don't take anything for granted. It's not like we're going to become the paranoid group, but we know, as we said few weeks now, we're at war. The thing that happened today that struck me so deeply, we live in two different Americas. It was America today of seeing the actions or reactions. And let's just say, rewind back to the summer and the protests, BLM, etc. Totally different reaction. Totally different reaction. They respond to us differently. They respond to us more aggressively. They respond to, or they react to us. Shoot now, ask questions later. You know, this is why we're calling on the new administration to have a total reform of the police force, the detectives, etc. This is what that is what I noticed the most. White privilege, white privilege, white privilege. Because they knew those officers were not going to touch them. Let's just say it was 160 arrests. That would not even be high, because we know that they came to do destruction. They don't know how to be peaceful. They don't know how to be a respecter of person. This is what we have. These are the great-grandchildren of our open enemy slaveholders. These are the great-grandchildren of slaveholders. This is what they know to do. This is what they know to do. This is what they know to do. And they did it. They didn't have any problem exercising their First Amendment, and they were not going to be touched. This is an atrocity. This is proof positive of the difference from melanated people to non-melanated people. The rules apply to us one way, and they apply to Caucasians very differently. Very differently. So we have to be diligent. We have to do our due diligence to, maybe the first 100 days will be significant in this new administration, because they have a lot of wrongs to make right. And I think people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And today was proof positive of the injustice that we melanated bodies endure, the injustice, and non-melanated people, that was just another day for them because they knew, proof positive, nothing was going to happen to them significant. It's not something they're going to be traumatized 10, 20 years. They brought in all of these officers from other jurisdictions, and I'm thinking, oh, oh man, they're going to probably shoot some rubber bullets. I mean, this is where we are. So please be mindful. We have to be mindful. We have to know what we are dealing with. We must be diligent, check your surroundings, monitor if you're in a state that there is, we just recently have the CBD and the THC and all that. I went to Circle K, I think I shared, and that they had a spinner and it was all stuff like that. So if you have any paraphernalia, and if you're in a state that it's not quote unquote legal, be mindful. Don't give officers quote unquote a reason, even though they don't have a reason to treat you with the respect you deserve. Your ancestors paved the way for you to be deserving of, a peaceful interaction with police. They were in police, the protesters, they were talking about the mob. I think somebody used the mob. These were domestic terrorists. And so with that, this was an upsetting situation because today, if not any other time, we could see the injustice that we often are not privileged to get. We're going to be treated, we are guilty before we're presumed innocent. Breonna Taylor was in her home. Guns broke down the door. Guns drawn, guns used. They knew that zip code. They knew the zip code. They knew possibly who was behind that door. So this is proof positive. This is yet another example of the bias in this country that lives lives and breathes. So in closing, I just want to say, didn't the FBI know this was coming? Did the FBI have a clue that this was going to be happening today? Even Trump mentioned, stand back and stand by or something. Stand back, stand by. This is the 6th of January. And he was giving them a nod. Stand back, stand by. We got you. So FBI can figure out, because Trump had already said, stand by, stand back, stand back, stand by. So on the 6th. So you mean to tell me a elaborate system and network with the FBI, this went under the rug? No one saw this coming? I beg to differ. They probably just didn't care because of who they look like. So we have hopefully we're waking up now from our sleep and slumber. And if you're not outraged, what's that about? What is that about? I'm going to be watching very, very carefully, very, very closely, the first 100 days of this new administration. And we will see what gets rolled out. If it's, lockdown of some magnitude. But if they're going to address domestic terrorists, like the guy Christmas Day, he blew himself up in Nashville. They like blowing each other. I don't know. This is what they did. This guy, it was a solo. It wasn't anyone else involved, apparently. But explosives, they can wreak havoc. They tried to do that with the Capitol, and it's just proof positive of what we're dealing with. This open enemy has no boundaries. They don't even try to look a certain way. They don't have any vested interest. This is where you are. This is where I am. This is what we know to have happened. If these were Black and brown people, Breonna Taylor protests, George Floyd protests, Arbery whatever, they would have been shooting people and asking questions later. So this must be addressed. The new administration must address this. And we're going to see if we can get this thing right. Because a lot of Black and brown bodies are being killed. And it's, I don't even want to think, I don't feel sad, but I'm just in a knowing, trusting and believing that this is where we are. This is where we live. This is our truth. It will set us free. So be careful, sisters and brothers, beloved. Just monitor your movements. Probably as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, this is a time for preparation. This is the cleansing time. This is the, hitting the reset button, up until probably 6, 7, no. I'm going to say middle of March. This is our building time. This is our getting things ready in preparation to launch. This is the season that we're in. So if you're inclined to write your senator, your mayor, your governor, if you believe in this system, do that. Totally do that. I believe this system must be kind of broken down and revamped and to build anew. Because this current system that we're under, we started off on the wrong foot because we were 3/5 of a human being up until early or mid to late, like 150, 130 years ago. So let's be mindful. Let's not take anything for granted. With the COVID going on, half of the people were not even wearing masks. They didn't even give a daggone. So this is where we are. This is what we live in. This is what we know. So I'm just going to wrap it up and say, you know where you are. You know the bias in this country. It was proof positive on the mall today of the treatment of Black and brown people would not have been so polite, extending our olive branch. It just wouldn't have been. And I think this lady from, I want to say Missouri, maybe, she brought it up in one interview I watched. That if these were Black Lives Matter folks, I just don't want to think about the bloodshed because it would have been that. So we live in two Americas. Um, it's sad, but we've known this, but now the world knows this. So with that, be well, stay safe. Like I said, this was a. I'm kind of glad that I saw what I saw because I'm not. I've never been confused, but I will have the images of how police can behave. We often don't see that. We don't have the privilege of seeing that. So this was white privilege at its best. So be well, stay safe. I want to see how much coronavirus uptick in DC is going to happen over the events of the day. Probably 4 to 6 weeks. We're going to see a spike, another spike. And yeah, so I recommend you contacting me, by any of the platforms, like, share, subscribe, and follow. I look forward to your comments, and I hope you stay safe. Be well. Peace.